Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Justice League Revisited. I'm James Enstall of Geek to Me Radio, joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, the one and only Susan Eisenberg. How's it going?
So far, so good. Ask me in about 50 minutes.
Okay.
No,
right.
So far, so good. I'm excited. I mean, the thing about doing this as we're doing it is I am so looking forward to it. Like, I kind of miss you in between our recordings.
I miss you.
I'm a little attached now. I have to say, I like this gig. And if it were a paying gig, it would be my dream come true.
No kidding.
Right?
We may have to look into that at some point. Let's see if we can monetize this puppy.
Anyone out there who wants to sponsor us,
right? Please
feel free to talk to our people.
This episode of Justice League brought to you by Peter Pan Peanut Butter. Well,
I'm so ready.
Now, that begs the question, Susan, are you a Peter Pan, a Skippy, or a Jif girl?
I'm neither. I'm none of those.
You have a peanut allergy?
No.
Okay.
I love peanut butter, and I have a favorite.
Oh.
But I do have a favorite, and it's extraordinary. And once you try this peanut butter, you will never go back to the other brands. And I am blanking on the name of it. So I'm just
good.
It's so good. I can't remember the name, but it's so good. Hi. How are you?
I'm good. You had some time off. We took a little break here. A little break, I say, because it's nice that we have these 2 weeks in between episodes to, edit the one, get it out there, reach out to other guests. So for those of you who are listening, wondering, hey, it's been 2 weeks, it probably will always be 2 weeks because that gives us a lot of time. Susan's obviously very busy, doing her voiceover work and everything like that.
Very, very busy.
Like
very,
everyone
very
in radio,
busy.
I've got a day job, so it's nice to have the 2 week break in between for us.
Yeah, and do we want to talk about what's upcoming for us in terms of what's dropping soon?
Yes, we can. Let's see. The episode that will be coming up after this will be looking at Injustice for All, which is probably one of my favorite 2-part episodes of season 1.
Oh, that says a lot.
I know.
mean, that says a lot. That it's okay. So, all right. So we have that coming up, and we have a new. We just have a lot going on. Let's just say it.
Yeah.
We're very, very busy.
It's a lot, but this is so much fun. It's something that you and I have talked about, and the love that we've seen on Twitter and Instagram and Threads and all the social medias for what we're doing has been heartwarming.
Oh gosh, I was reading the reviews on Apple Podcasts because that's where I post it, and I have to say it's so touching. I wish I could respond, and I have to figure out a way that we can respond to the comments. I don't know if we can respond to the reviews, but they've been so heartwarming and sweet and kind, and it really makes me appreciate that we're doing this because there is an audience out there that. Obviously, we know this, right? There's an audience out there that loves the show, that is still watching the show, that keeps the show alive. And they're listening to this podcast and they're grateful it's out there. So that makes me very happy.
It does to me as well. And I know I've been kind of watching Spotify. You're kind of keeping an eye on Apple. I need to find if there's some place that we can see an aggregation because I don't pay too much attention. There's got to be a website out there that takes... Here's the numbers you're getting on Apple Podcast. Here's the numbers you're getting on Spotify. Here's one from the RSS feed for all the other ones so we can see who's listening, where they're listening at. I know my show, Geek to Me Radio, for some reason, I'm very big in Ireland, which is...
Really?
That's like my third largest. It's United States, Canada. Number 3 is Ireland, of all places. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's awesome.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because I just saw a buddy of mine posted that he's English, he's British, and Justice League is going to be airing on Netflix UK.
Yes, I believe the person you're referring to is Luke Bugg, the Geek of Steel.
Yes. Do you know Luke?
I do. I met him at Superman Celebration in Metropolis, Illinois. He came all the way from across the pond, as they say, to come to Superman Celebration.
Yeah, he's just a lovely man, and I've been on his podcast, and so he posted that, and I was like, woohoo! That's fantastic news, because he's been wanting that for a very long time. I mean, I suppose before that, it was all about DVDs and that's how right?
I mean, I would guess. I would assume so.
Yeah, okay. Well, England, we're coming to you, and we welcome you. That's all.
England, Ireland, UK, Wales, Scotland, all the United Kingdom areas, I assume they're all getting it. So if you are in that area and you're listening to this, hopefully by the time this one's dropped, you've got Justice League on your streaming service, which is great because Susan and I have talked about doing a live stream where she and I both live tweet one of our upcoming episodes. So if you're listening right now, go to Twitter at OG Justice League is the official handle for us on Twitter. And just leave a comment, tag us and say, hey, we'd love this one to be the episode you live tweet, or we want you to live tweet the Savage Time or whatever it is. And whatever one gets the most shout outs, that'd probably be a good one for us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about how we just want this to be an engagement with the fans. I mean, we may be in front of the mics for the moment, but we want the fans to be a part of the conversation, and I just feel like we're all in it together. We were in the JL reunion, hashtag JL reunion together. Now we're in JL Revisited, hashtag JL Revisited together. So, this is all of us. So please let us know the episode you'd like us to do and just any questions, general, specific that you have for us, for the guests. We're here just trying to make this, we're just going along, trying to figure this out. So we welcome any comments, any, comments, help, aid, advice,
anything you can think of. It's like, oh, would you please, we're trying to get guests. So if you're going to send us a guest request, that's perfectly fine. But please know that we are working on a lot of different guests, ones that would be special to certain episodes. I'll go ahead and I will give you some behind the scenes baseball right now. I found a contact for Scott, who voiced Aquaman, but I've not heard anything back. And he's not easy to get. He doesn't have, if I go onto IMDb Pro, he doesn't have a manager or PR guy listed there that I can contact. So I was going through other people. I was trying to find stuff. I found a contact, but I don't even know if he's seen my message yet. So we did try to get some other people, but we want to set some expectations. I know Susan and I, we both talked about this, Susan. Sometimes we might not do 2 episodes for one story. Like this Friend Me Below, we might just do this one with Kevin Hopps, the writer, and move on. Other times, Susan and I have discussed, maybe it's just you and I, Susan.
Oh, I think I think I think you and I and the fans and the listeners have to be okay with that too, because, it sometimes, like you said, I mean, we wanted Scott to be on here desperately. And I'm a huge fan of his work. I loved him in this episode, And I remember being in the room. There are several people I just remember being in there with them, and he was one of them. And he's so good. But we tried. It's hard to find certain people, and it's hard to work with people's schedules. But we did try. If anyone out there is like, why didn't they have Scott?
Right.
Well, we tried. And in fact, Watchtower database, James reached out to me and said, do you have contact information for Scott? And I'm like, we're trying. And if we get it, we'll pass it on to you. So Scott, if anyone knows Scott, send him our way, would you?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're trying. So yeah, I think it'll be okay if it's just you and I. I mean, You're a fan. I'm a fan.
And you're in
I was in the room. I was in the room where it happened. So I think that's good enough, right?
Yeah, it should be. And I think that, like I said, with all the people, we had trouble getting Kevin, to be honest. We were like, hey, do you have information for him? Hey, do you guys know how to contact him? So even some of the writers and directors and everything like that, we're kind of reaching out to some of our contacts to see if they have contacts. So we do our best to get the guests. And of course, Susan, like you said, Susan was in the room. So if we have an episode, we might have a guestless episode, but Susan is Wonder Woman. So for crying out loud, we've already got one cast member on every single one of our shows.
Right. And I'll be here. Mm-hmm. And you'll be here. It's good. It's good. Okay. So should we get started with our episode?
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, we are covering The Enemy Below. This is the 3rd story of the Justice League series from season 1, episodes 6 and 7. Part 1 was released on December the 3rd, 2001 on Cartoon Network. Part 2, or as the French say, Part 2, episode debuted on the 10th of December, 2001 on Cartoon Network. The writer was our guest, Kevin Hops. Director, our friend, Dan Reba. And this one, we mentioned in other episodes, not every actor, not every character was in each episode. This one, no Flash and no Hawkgirl, but we do get some really good Michael Rosenbaum action in this first episode, which we'll talk about that as well.
Okay, did you hear me in the episode? Do you know that I play a different character in this episode?
You did. I believe you were I'm not sure if it was if you were the helmsman, the communications officer, but you were on the Defiant submarine.
Yes, I was I was the communications officer. Yes, indeed.
I recognized your voice. It was
Me too.
It was slightly different. It wasn't Wonder Woman, obviously. But
well, yeah, ish. I mean, it was, me trying not to sound like Wonder Woman.
And you mentioned, hopefully you're okay with me saying this. You mentioned before we started recording that you cringed a little bit. You didn't, everyone's their own worst critic, but you said you didn't care for your performance. Was it as Wonder Woman or was it as communications officer?
Oh, no, I thought I brought everything I could to the communications officer.
I would agree.
Was terrific. I mean, I really fleshed out that character for myself. I had a backstory for her. No, I cringed at the Wonder Woman part because it was just, it was, we'll talk about it, but
yes.
I developed let's just say that I developed as the series went on. It wasn't my best performance, but I think I got better as time passed.
Absolutely.
We'll leave it there. We'll talk more about it with Kevin.
Which we are going to do right now. Our guest is a writer-producer known for his work on such famous animated series as The Smurfs, Animaniacs, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, and of course, Young Justice, which we could get into a whole other conversation about that as well. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Kevin Hops.
Hey, howdy. How are you?
Hi, Kevin. Welcome. Thank you so much for doing the show. Thank you.
No problem.
James and I were very impressed by One Day at a Time. I mean, we just, Too Close for Comfort is James was very giddy earlier when we were talking about you. And One Day at a Time, you got us both. So we're just thrilled you did, you said yes. And I know that it was a long time ago, this episode. And hopefully you had a chance to.
I did. I actually found that I had a DVD, so I watched it.
Oh, great.
I don't know how much that'll do me, but yeah, at least I remember what the plot was about.
And Kevin, can we ask you, just to start this interview, can we ask you how you got the gig? Like how you came to write this episode?
Sure. For a long time, I wrote mostly comedy stuff. And I wanted to do, and then I was at Warner Brothers. They brought me over. I had done quite a few years at Disney and felt like I wanted to change. So my agent reached out to Warner Brothers, and Gene McCurdy and Tom Ruger brought me over there. And I wanted to do action, and I kept going to Alan Burnett. I want to do action. Oh yeah, we'll do it. They never did. I mean, part of it was, they have their own cliques in this business. Anyway, I kept trying for the longest time. But nothing was happening. I actually ended up writing some spec television drama stuff that got me into the Warner Brothers drama workshop, even while I was working in animation. And I think maybe that started to say like, oh, he can do some drama. But I knew Rich Fogel because actually my very first job in animation was on the Smurfs, and Rich Fogel and Mark Seidenberg were the story editors. I worked on and off on different things with Rich working something for me or me for him. And so Rich called me one day and asked if I would have lunch with him and Stan Berkowitz. So I went to lunch with them, and they said they wanted to know if I wanted to do a story. And I said, of course, I've been wanting to do an action story for a while. So they said they had this story. I don't remember if they said, here's a story we want you to do, this Aquaman thing, or they said, pick between a couple. But I know I didn't pitch the idea. They already had the idea of this was the episode Aquaman's going to cut off his hand.
Right.
Which was right out of the comics at the time. That was cool to see.
Yeah, they didn't know, how or why yet. And I think they also knew there was going to be a thing between Aquaman and the world and his brother betraying him.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a feeling that stuff was at the beginning. There might have been even more of it, or else I went right to outline. And that pretty much nails down the structure of it, and everybody chips in. And that's pretty much how it went. There's only one thing that I remember, actually, and tell me if I'm getting off on a tangent.
No, this is fantastic. We love hearing these we love hearing from the writers. So
what happened was, I think, and I can't remember at what level, probably outline. I remember that there was I really liked the story because there was a lot of, it felt very Shakespearean with the whole betrayal and things like that going on. So there'd be like, a chase scene, an assassination, an attempt, the stealing of the sub. It was almost like, in my mind, each scene's sort of like a separate story in itself as it moves forward. So it was great. But I do remember one part. It seemed to my mind that Wonder Woman was I paired her off more against Aquaman than, so that, you think that everybody gets along, but they have this sort of like breakup. In the first version, I had it that Aquaman is chained underwater, and so is Wonder Woman. And so in that version that I had, I felt like, oh, well, here, Aquaman has to make a big choice. Clearly, he's not going to drown.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But he knows Wonder Woman will.
Mm-hmm.
So he makes a sacrifice to cut off his hand to save Wonder Woman.
Oh.
Huh.
And which I still like, because I feel like that's a real choice. He wasn't going to die. He didn't need to save her, but he did. And that would tell you something about his character. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, and I didn't argue because it still works. They wanted to do the baby.
Right.
My objection is that I like to have a bigger choice, like a tougher choice that someone makes. And in that version, as you know, if you've seen it, Aquaman's he has no choice. He has to cut off his hand. Otherwise, he not only is his baby going to die, he's going to die. He's going to go under because they put the volcano thing in there. To me, it's not quite the same choice, but it ties up nicely at the end, with the baby. So I don't know how that came in. It might have been something that Bruce had in the back of his head the whole time that he wanted to do with the baby. But it worked. I mean, it still worked.
It was actually the baby's agent who pushed for that.
Exactly.
It wasn't Bruce at all.
Wow, they're going to do a spin-off show with the baby.
The baby.
Aquababy, brought to you by Warner Brothers.
I have to say, that is such an interesting story, though. I love that idea. I mean, now that I've seen the episode the way it is, and I just love the idea of him cutting off his hand for Wonder Woman. I think that's kind of brilliant.
It is, it's hard. Like everybody, I mean, that's the thing in our business. Everybody wants to do their story. And there's a lot that, when you're freelance, I don't know what their other things that they want to hit or what their objection might be. I think another thing, I might be wrong about this, but on the rooftop scene, I guess spoilers are okay on this show.
Oh yeah. Since the show's 22 years old, we're okay with spoilers. Feel free, spoil away.
Yeah, spoil away.
So like on the rooftop scene when they capture the assassin, and he won't say who hired him.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had Batman grab him and hang him over the building. I might be wrong, but I think so. But I'm pretty sure I didn't come up with that he just whispers in his ear.
Oh, right.
Because that's one of those things is like it worked to me, and I found it funny and that it worked. But that's one of those things that if I wrote it, I would just be thinking, there's no way they're going to let me get away with that.
So fun fact about that scene, Kevin Conroy, during one of his interviews on stage, I can't remember which convention it was, he was talking about that particular episode, and he said that in the mic, he whispered, "I know where you live, Floyd," as Batman to Floyd Lawton Deadshot. And Deadshot's like, okay. So that was Kevin's actual line that he was obviously not made it into the episode, but that's what he whispered into the mic, which I thought was brilliant. Very, very Batman-like.
It's kind of funny, though, when I watched it, totally forgot what happened, actually. So I'm going along just like everybody else. And when he said he won't talk, when Wonder Woman asked
Mm-hmm.
tell us what you do it, I kept thinking, oh, she's just going to take her lasso and
Oh,
and then it didn't happen. I'm going, oh, why? I wonder why we didn't do that.
I was wondering either Wonder Woman's lasso of truth or Jean could have just mind said, okay, here's what we,
Right.
because I was wondering, I'm like, oh, didn't know if that was because Batman didn't get much screen time in these episodes. So I was wondering if maybe that was just to give him more to do.
Sometimes I think I'm pretty sure that probably I was told, let this person be the hero in this part of this, like I'm sure like the whole thing about when they have to come up with a solution to save Aquaman.
yeah.
And it's Batman. I'm pretty sure that wasn't my idea. I'm pretty sure somebody probably told me, and then we want Batman to be the one who comes in with the idea. And why I didn't ask why. So when someone tells you to do something, unless it doesn't make sense, I would say sometimes some people have it because it's like they're setting something up for a future episode.
Sure.
So you don't know. So yeah, I don't really question. I might question it if I thought it didn't make any sense, which occasionally do. But like with Stan and Rich and those guys, they know what they're doing.
They're pros. They're pro.
Yeah.
We just had Stan on last week, actually.
Yeah.
And we had Dan Reba on for our first episode. So
yeah, I'm sure like most of the action stuff I'll do, like say it's a chase down a street or something, I'll throw in 3 or 4 different problems, I guess you could say, that they run into this, and then this looks good, and then this happened, and then I pretty much just throw it out there in a script, and then the board guys can have those sort of like tent poles to use, or they might, if they start off in a different direction, like somehow they brainstorm a different starting point, they may never get to any of the stuff, the action stuff that I put in the script. So when I look at like and there's a lot of action fight scenes in there.
Yeah.
I'm guessing a lot of that came from Dan and his team and Bruce, directing them what the specific action was. And I was totally happy with it. Sometimes I see stuff and it's like gratuitous chasing or violent and it has like no point.
right.
But it was all great stuff, and seemed all appropriate there. I do remember another thing that was a suggestion from Rich. I don't know why this stands out in my mind, but when the assassin was getting away, I might have had it in the outline more straightforward, like he's being chased down and they grab him, he punches, he gets away, they grab him, whatever, that type of a chase. And Rich's suggestion was let the guy have a plan. He knows how he's going to sneak out, and I don't know if gave me the specifics, but he probably just said that, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. The point being, they want to make sure that it's a villain that seems like who's competent,
Right. A worthy adversary.
exactly.
And we've seen a lot of Deadshot now in the in the DC cinematic universe with, having him be in the Arrowverse, and we saw Will Smith play him in the first Suicide Squad. So Deadshot, that was his first appearance in the DC animated universe. He wasn't even in Batman, the animated series, until that point, if I remember correctly. So it was kind of cool to see him pop up in Justice League.
It was great to have that in there. I mean, there's so much in that episode, so many set pieces. I mean, I have to say, like, I was once at a Comic-Con, I was just wandering the floor. Dwayne McDuffie came I never met Dwayne McDuffie. I don't know if he just saw my name tag or someone pointed me out to him. So I was just at somebody's booth or whatever, and he came up and introduced himself and said he had just started on staff or something at Warner Brothers, and that Bruce Timm had given him a copy of that script and said, "This is the kind of script we want to do."
Wow.
So I was really, because nobody told me that.
Right.
They just say thanks.
Yeah.
Here's your money. Go. And so that was nice to hear, sort of the compliment passed down from Dwayne. That was the only time I met Dwayne, so I always have this high regard for him.
And I got to say, that's something that, Susan, you probably know this if you're keeping track with me. 4 out of 4 episodes, every single guest has referenced Dwayne McDuffie, which makes me feel phenomenal that he's so closely aligned with this particular show.
For me, it was just a nice guy that went out of his way to basically praised me.
Yes.
What he did, which to some extent is funny because none of the guys involved with the story did, but he did. I mean, I don't praise my writers either. I mean, it's like when I use a writer, it's just, hey, thanks, good job. Maybe that's what you'll get. You don't really go out of your way because it's like, well, that's what I expect. Otherwise, I wouldn't use you, right?
Well, that sounds like Stan. That was Stan's way of going about it. So there was a writer once who said to Stan, asked Stan, do you like the way I write? And he's like, what do you mean? I've hired you. You have a contract. Like, we've done a ton of projects together. Of course I like the way you write. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to ask because you've never told me. And, so I think that was Dwayne's heart, I suppose. But there's always a kindness attached to letting somebody know they did a good job.
Well, also like I've heard stories, I won't name the names, but I've heard some stories of some story editors that do like massive rewrites, 80 to 90%, which I've done, but usually that's on a beginner's stuff, but hiring the same person, but then totally rewriting them. And so I hear this story from a lot of writers saying, yeah, this guy, I don't know, but he keeps hiring me, so he must like me, but he totally rewrites me. So it's just, and I found too, because sometimes I'll ask this particular writer, I've asked for like, oh, can you recommend some writers? And I get a writer, and it doesn't turn out so well for me. Mm-hmm. But what you learn is that sometimes a story editor he wants a certain element from the writer, like maybe comedy, maybe action, maybe just format, maybe just a unique idea every once in a while. And then that's enough for that story editor. Sadly, I try to, but usually you're in such a hurry. You just are when you give notes on a script or an outline, you're just telling them what's wrong. It's like, can you fix this? Or no, this won't work because of this. And you're telling them all the bad things or what they need to do, or can you make the action a little, increase it or whatever. And I try it every once in a while to put like, oh, this was a good line, or really like this part of that, but never nearly enough.
What you said earlier about you coming from a comedy background, that you wanted to do action. One thing I noticed, and it may have just been the simple fact that we didn't have Flash, who is kind of like the comedic relief of the Justice League, this particular Core 7 group. This was all action and all drama. Yeah. It was very serious, no comedy at all. Did you approach it purposely like, I'm not going to put comedy in it? Or was it kind of, this is just organically the way the script came out?
Yeah, I don't think I had a conscious, like, I can't put comedy in it. It just, everything seemed, the nature of it just seemed so, with all the betrayal and things like that. I really liked that. I mean, it was so much like, okay, so you had Aquaman and the Justice League, underwater human, that twist where they're friends but they're not, and then the brother thing and the whole power struggle. I like that kind of thing. I like it. I mean, it's so what's happening always in the world, so that was great. And I love to do it. So like some of the other stuff I've done, like I pretty much like, I would still say like Spider-Man, Young Justice, and Rebels, they all have a lot more humor in them. It's just the nature of it. And I kind of like that, but at the same time, I didn't have a problem with how it just seemed like it did. There's nothing occurred to me. And I don't know if you look at my original script, which I don't have, maybe I did have some kind of witty something in there, and someone said, no, we don't want to do, we don't want to do that. But it all fits on the viewing of it. It's like, well, it just seemed to flow like that's what would happen, in that case. So yeah, I liked it.
Kevin, were you at the recording sessions?
No, I'm pretty sure I wasn't.
Okay. So is that typical for a freelancer not to be there?
Sometimes you'll get invited to come to their session.
Sure.
Sometimes if it's too many people or whatever, they don't want you. I don't know. But the fact that you have so many people already involved, like Dan Reba and Rich and Stan and Bruce, if they're all in the booth, sometimes it's just they don't want the extra person there.
Were you a comic book fan growing up? I know we talked to Stan, and obviously Dan Reba was. Phil, huge comic book fan. Were you a comic book
fan? I read comic books. I remember always going into the store and getting a comic book, whatever. But I didn't collect them or anything like that. I just read them. I like reading them. I didn't realize until I got into animation that, I don't think I'm a fan because everybody else is so much a fan. So that's what a fan is. I thought maybe I was, but and I'm this way anyway. I've never had like a memory where I remember the details of stuff, as opposed to when I got into the business. I went, oh yeah, I remember and this comic book, and I'm just going like, no, I don't. And it actually, I always used to beat myself up as a writer. I'm just thinking like, how can you be a good writer? You can't remember. You don't have a memory. You don't have this like photographic memory. You don't have to. And then I don't remember who I read this by, but I read some interview with some writer who was saying same thing. Doesn't have a good memory, but he thought that's a good thing because he could steal from all the stuff he's read, but he would never steal directly because he couldn't remember it completely. And I'm going like, that's probably what I do. I have like all this stuff, so it's like it's sort of like the chase scene and whatever, or this that. Whereas some people actually I've had where they'll give you the thing and you go, this is exactly like it was in a movie. You can't do that, It's every single thing's the same. It's like, no, you should take the essence of it and then with your characters and situation, create new. So yeah, I to go back, it's like I like comic books, but I wasn't a fan. Like when I got on Spider-Man, I had to go back and read all the comics again to get to know, like, I don't remember who all the villains were and this and that. And I would just sit back when everybody else would go, oh yeah, it's like this, that, they would be spouting off exactly.
Yeah, there are different levels of fandom. Right. There's different levels. And when when I met James, it's like, that's why this podcast I thought would work, because I was in the room, but James is the geekiest geek, and he knows all of this stuff, and he remembers everything. And that's one of the reasons I love revisiting all these episodes, because I don't remember, and it's just been so much fun rewatching them and experiencing them again after all this time. And we should give a shout out to the actors, James, the voice actors from this episode.
Yeah, we had Scott Rummel. Do you remember, Kevin? Was it Rummel or Rummel?
I'm not going to remember.
All right, no. I thought I might ask. So Scott, who played Aquaman, and we had Kristen Bauer, who played Mira. And of course, Susan, you were telling me either in a previous episode or one of our conversations that she told you in the booth when she goes, oh, you know what? I auditioned for Wonder Woman.
Well, I think a lot of people did.
It sounds like you were hard to find.
A lot of women would tell me, oh, I auditioned for this role, for your role.
It's funny. It's like, I don't know how it was for this show, because obviously I was a freelancer, but I've been on a lot of shows at the beginning when you have to audition the actors and stuff. And it's so bad because every once in a while the show, like I've been on certain shows where they go, I want this actor for this role. Let's try him, or these three people. But a lot of times they have no idea. And you realize they really have no idea. And I always feel funny about like the actors who come in first.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't know they'll go, oh, that's kind of good. No, that's a grab. It's like, I'll know when I see it. And then after a while, like maybe the second day or whatever, it's like, hey, the one at the beginning we had him. Maybe it was something like that with it. And they could give more direction to the actors that come in later.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
And sometimes, it varies. Some people are very specific. Like, I think you could take a director like a Dave Filoni. He probably knows exactly what he wants. Greg Weisman, he probably already has. I've seen him sit down like with Jamie Thompson. He'll say like, let's try this guy and this guy. He has certain ones. And other ones, it's like, well, I want somebody like this area or whatever. But I've been on shows where they're totally clueless. And like Wonder Woman, it's like, I have no idea how they did it, but it's probably, they hear a bunch of people and then start to get an idea of what they want.
Yeah, I'd never heard anything about it, the process, except from Dan Reba. And it was fairly recently where he talked to me and James about the casting process of the character.
Right.
And it was lovely to hear the behind the scenes because I'd never heard it before. So, yeah. And I just thought Kristen I just believed that relationship between Aquaman and Mira. I thought it was so well done. And Richard Green played the Orm.
Yes.
He's so good in this episode. And Xander, who I just adore, Xander Berkeley, was the general, I believe. And, it's just a great voice cast. And
it was good.
It was great. Just great.
One of the things, too, that I liked about it was quite a few people, in it, but not too many. It was, you could probably have done it with maybe taking a couple out even. It was nicely balanced. And I don't think that had so much to do with me. I'm sure I was guided towards that. So yeah, I thought it worked really well. And obviously I think by that time, all the voices and stuff were established. So
Ish.
Yeah.
It's pretty early in. And I was saying to James earlier, when I was rewatching it, it made me cringe a little at my own performance because there's so much, you have to be able to imagine what's happening because obviously you don't have anything to look at. There's, it's a script, it's words. So you have to create that, those images. You have to create the world. And that's what Andrea Romano helps you do. And you have to and she's brilliant. And that's what you have to do as an actor. And I was saying to James before you came on that I think I got better at that as I went. And certainly video games have helped me do that tremendously because you're just in the room by yourself and you really have to create that universe for yourself.
Yeah. I love shows that do the whole ensemble there, so everybody's there at the same time. I just think it's so much better.
No, we were so lucky in that regard. And we did have quite a few celebrities, but they showed up with us. There weren't any divas, and if there were, I'm sure they didn't last very long because that wasn't the vibe of the show. But there were a lot of people. I remember sitting next to Alfred Molina, I believe it was his first animation gig.
Oh wow!
And he just looked at me and said, "I have no idea what I'm doing." And I said, well, honey, you might want to sit next to somebody else because, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. But he was just so happy to be there. And I think most people felt that way. And there wasn't any well, I can't make it this day. It was like, this is the day you're recording. And everyone showed up for the most part.
Yeah, it's so much better when you can have everybody there.
I think that's one of the reasons this show has endured is because there is that camaraderie. Like if you go to a convention, you see Susan and George Marie and Phil sitting next to each other. They're friends. Yeah. I love that. I think that comes through in the voice acting.
You could see I went to early Comic Cons before it got really crazy. Mm-hmm. And I would say, hey, for better or for worse, I guess you could say, but what really helped, everybody attributes it to all the movies and stuff. And surely that had a part, but I do feel like actors doing panels and stuff like that started to really became this big, huge thing where attendees wanted to come and see that,
Oh, 100%.
You only get a few people who go to see writers, but it's not really.
But one of the reasons James and I wanted to do this podcast was we wanted the writers on. That was one of our goals, was to have as many writers as we could have, because I believe you're the unsung heroes. And I think you are. And and I think that it's obvious to say in some ways, but without that script, I don't think any of the magic happens. And so when the actors may get a lot of the accolades and we get a lot of the praise and a lot of attention, but I'm always quick to say, but look at who wrote the script and look who directed the script. And yes, it's a great ensemble. Yeah, and
all the storyboard artists.
We'd love to have the storyboard. We're going to have the composers on. We want to have all the people who don't get a lot of the attention, and it's funny because we invited Dan Reba. James and I did a Comic-Con not too long ago, and Dan was in town, and we said, Dan, come be part of the con with us on the panel. And he's like, oh, come on, no one's going to care. And he got the most questions. And after he was just bombarded with questions, we all went out to lunch, and Dan had to hang out for 15 minutes answering questions.
I think I think they let people like in comics and animation, they have a great appreciation for the directors of the shows. And that because also those guys seem to remember this stuff more. But it's kind of funny too. It's like I don't really like to do panels myself, but it's like occasionally some friend will ask me, "Oh, you want to do a panel with us?" So I'll usually say, if you can't get somebody else, okay, fine.
But there's so few people who've done what you do, and I think people are very enamored by it. And one of the things we asked Stan was, how did you get your start? Not on the show only, but as a writer. There are a lot of people out there Well, I hope a lot of people are out there listening, but there are people out there listening who would love to do what you do, just like I get asked about voiceover.
Yeah, I was like a bookworm, to the fact that people would call me a bookworm.
Yeah.
And I was always reading, and like, I want to be a writer. I would send into those, like, on the matchbooks or whatever, like, be a writer school or whatever it is. But in school, in college, I was like a journalism major and an English minor. So I thought I'd be like a journalist working on the All-American Novel.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was doing that, I got a summer job delivering scripts on a weekend for the Norman Lear's company, which is called Tandem, TAT. And so I was delivering scripts to like Maude and All in the Family, Jeff, on the weekend. I would only do it like this guy would get sick or something, or he didn't want to work on a weekend, and asked if I could do it. So I did it a couple of times. And then one summer, he got promoted temporarily, and he asked if I could take his place. He was what they call a gopher, go for this.
Sure.
So he asked if I could take the job for summer. So I did that, and I was working on the shows. Like I think at that time it was All in the Family, Jefferson's, Good Times, and Maude. So I would do stuff like, I don't know, I would be there in the morning, and I would have to go to farmer's market and buy like fruits and vegetables to bring over for their snacks and stuff like that. So I would do all of that. And then at the end of summer, they liked me and they wanted me to stay on. And they said, well, we'll just move that other guy that you're filling in for. We're going to give him a different kind of job so you can keep this job. But I had to go back to school. So I asked the school, like, well, do you think I could sit in on writers' meetings and things like that? Maybe I could get the school to give me credit or something. But the school wouldn't give me credit. So I was like, I just said, well, then I'm going to drop out. And then maybe when this job's over, I'll go back and finish. So I dropped out. So I was the gopher. And then within a short time, I became Norman Lear's driver.
Good gig.
Was great.
Wow.
I just hung out with Norman all day because I was just on sort of like on call, whatever they already had the gophers that would do all the, I didn't really have much to do other than I drive him and hang out with him. And I would go to like every single tape. He would, they had like whatever it was, 4 or 5 shows going on. So I would go to All on Family taping. I would go to the rehearsals. I would go to all of that stuff. I would go, and he might say, go tell such and such a writer, give him this note. And I would go take it to the note, So I knew all the writers. And in those days, they had all these great writers. They had Bob Hope's writers. They had Show writers. They had I Love Lucy writers. They had George Burns writers. So I was always hanging out in their offices, and I was writing spec scripts and showing them to the people. And they're going, yeah, we'll read them. And they never did. And then one day, I was driving. I think I had to pick up Norman's kids from high school. And when we were driving back to their place, one of them asked me, I think they're in high school. One of them asked me, well, what do you do? What do you want to do? And I just said, I just probably be your dad's driver for the rest of my life. That's it. So it was like, that was just throwaway. And I dropped him off. The next morning when I picked Norman up, he goes, we were talking about you last night at dinner, which first of all, I'm going like, really? Norman Lear was talking about me at dinner. And he goes, what's this? My daughter telling me you're just going to be I think I scared him. I don't know. You just want to be my driver? It's going like, it just sounded bad. He goes, no, what do you want to do? And I go, well, I want to be a writer. He goes, have you written anything? And I go, well, I wrote the spec. He goes, you should write a spec. We're doing a pilot, which was one day at a time, actually.
Wow.
He goes, you should write a spec for that. Told me where to get the script of the pilot so I could see what it's about. So I maybe pitched a few ideas, but I pitched, that's one of them. And he said, okay, do that one. Or the script. And then one morning I said I had finished it, and he said, oh, I'll take it. And so he's reading this script. He's not laughing or anything. He's just reading this script, and I'm like driving. I don't know, what do I say? We get to the parking lot, and he folds the script up, and he goes, it just says, that was good. He goes, if the show gets picked up, I want you on staff. And wow. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anybody. I kind of just went, yeah, what, like that'll happen. And then, I don't know, months later, whenever, how long it took, one of the secretaries there came up to me and said, Kevin, why don't you tell us? And I don't know what they're talking about. They goes, well, I just saw, your name's on the staff list for the show. Wow. I didn't even pay attention. Like, you would think I would have paid attention. Like, is it going? Is it going? Is it going?
Right.
It's like I just got caught up in whatever I was doing. And so the next thing I know, it's like, oh, you're on staff of that show. So that was how it was.
Wow.
And then I went to animation, which is a different union. But I went there and I talked to them. It was also funny because I talked to him and he's telling me all about the show. I don't know anything about Smurfs. I don't know what they were, And then I went to the show and then he's telling me about them. And then he just goes, wait, you know what? Hold on a second. And he goes into the other room with his partner, who he ended up marrying. He comes back and he goes, I'm going to give you an assignment, a springboard or whatever. So they gave me a springboard. I wrote an outline, wrote the script. And then he said, you know what? This is the end of our season. But when we get picked up, when we're going to get picked up, he said, because it was such a big hit, he goes, we want you on staff on the show, And I said, oh, same thing. I said, sure. Okay. Yeah, great. And I didn't think God, right.
Other writers must really hate you, Kevin. I mean, my God, how great is that?
And then when I finally, they wanted me to come over to Disney. And so I had done the Smurfs and I wanted to do something different, but no one would let me do anything different at Hanna-Barbera because they needed you on the Smurfs.
Right.
And by that time, the Smurfs was an hour and a half.
It was a juggernaut in the 80s. I mean, that's a Saturday morning staple.
It was just killer. And we were just cranking out stories. And it was fun. I really liked the show. It was really fun shows. But after a while, it's like, I can't do this anymore. Can't I work on Scooby-Doo? Can't I do? No, we need you on Smurf. So finally, I just made a deal with Disney.
And did you think about going back in, Dear Norman, did you think about going back to live action and just going, what were your thoughts at that time?
I didn't really like sitcom, to be perfectly honest. I felt it was very at that time, very cutthroat.
Okay.
And people were really undermining each other because I guess the money was so much and residuals and people wanted to take credit. And so, and then when I got to animation, everybody was much more helpful and willing to give credit where credit was due. And not, whereas in the animation, in the live action, it was a lot of people would take credit for stuff that they didn't even really do, just because it was so important to get to PR. I think to some extent, unfortunately, I see more of that in animation. At the end of when I was at Disney Afternoon, but near the end of that thing, I started seeing it get more competitive and people doing that, which is unfortunate. Fortunately for me, I'd already kind of got my footing in it, so it didn't affect me so much. But I didn't enjoy that. I just enjoyed telling stories.
As we're wrapping up, though, I do want to ask, because we do ask online some of our listeners and fans to submit questions. And we got one that I was actually going to ask you about the enemy below. At Josh_Laborde, hopefully I pronounced that right, wanted to know, with Aquaman's hand being cut off in the episode, he cut it off himself, which is quite different from what Peter David did in the comic books. Do you specifically remember, was it a mandate when they said, here's what we want to do for the outline, and Aquaman has to lose his hand? Or was that something that that you kind of like, we're given this choice with Wonder Woman and his son?
I'm pretty sure they told me he's going to cut off his hand, because I don't think there's just certain thing. I mean, maybe somebody would say, but as a freelancer, that's such a out there thing. Like if I was on staff, maybe I would say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this is where he cuts off his hand?
Right.
But I think they pretty much said he did it, but clearly, like I say, they didn't have the situation. So basically, until I gave them the first time, the wrong one. I don't know how, if people were like, yeah, I like this with Wonder Woman. Yeah, but we have this baby we have to deal with. Maybe we should do the baby, So I'm not quite sure how that came about. I mean, it still worked that he did it. So, but yeah, I was, and again, because I'm not like that comic book fan, I was unaware of a lot of that stuff.
And it worked out well from our standpoint, because I mean, this is such a, like I said, the amount of high stakes in this episode were fantastic. I love the whole, and of course, The Enemy Below borrowed from a 1957 title of a movie starring Kurt Jurgens and I believe Robert Mitchum, 20th Century Fox Pictures, 1957, also with David Hedison. David Hedison and Kurt Jurgens would both go on to star in the James Bond franchise, coincidentally enough. But was the title?
See, I told you, Kevin. You heard that, right? See, that's the geek. There's the geek coming forward.
Yeah. See, that's the stuff
you witnessed
that I
it. Yeah, you witnessed it.
I have worked like Dave Filoni. And even Greg Weisman, knowing the it is like,
Greg's
okay,
brilliant.
Yeah, Greg is a brilliant nerd. Nerd.
I don't know. I don't think. I mean, if I came up with it, I must have known the reference from it, and I don't have any recall of that. So my guess is maybe they had the title.
Interesting. Well, we can ask Rich when we have Rich on. That's a good question
Rich
for
will
Rich.
know more about it.
Yes.
And I want to thank you, Kevin, for that line, Hera, help him. Because I love when I get to talk to Hera and ask Hera things. And so thank you for that. Anytime I get to say that in a script, I was thrilled and delighted. So thank you for that, Kevin.
With all the stuff that people do, are you, as we wrap it up, we always like to let the guest give out social media handles, websites. Are you very active online or not so much?
I'm not. I know, like, I see every once in a while someone is following me. I never post stuff. And it's like, I'll see, like, someone will alert me to, like, oh, someone complimented you or something on Twitter, and I'll look, and then I see someone, oh, you have this new follower, and I just go, and I feel sorry for these people because there's nothing there. So yeah, sorry, I don't. I totally am not a good networking kind of. I mean, I ended up actually inadvertently networking, but I don't like actually networking.
Speaking of actual networking, I'm monitoring our feed, and we just got another incoming question at Hector. I believe it was at Hector Navarra, asked about the hand thing too. So Hector, as you're listening to this, someone beat you to the question, but I think that was as answered by Kevin earlier. But it's again, that's one of the things you're talking about, social networking. I think as much as it can be a double-edged sword, the Facebook and the Twitter and Instagram or X or now or whatever they call it is the new let's go out for drinks after work and everything.
I got to tell you, you were so lovely in our emails. I wrote to you and asked you to do this, and you wrote back and said immediately that you would. And I just appreciate it so much that you took the time and that you shared your stories and your memories with us about this episode.
Although it's somewhat embarrassing because I told my wife, I said, I don't know how, like, this thing's supposed to be an hour. And I go, I don't have that much to say about this thing. And she says, yeah, because they'll ask you a question and then you won't shut up. So once again, she's right.
Kevin, I appreciate your time, taking the time on a day to sit and talk with us and give us your insights.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There he goes. It's always fun to have the writers on, Susan, because we get such great information. And it's we talked about last episode, the voice actors have their job and they come in, they give little stories, and I was working with this guy, but the writers and the directors really, I feel like, have a completely different perspective, which unfortunately we don't get because, like we talked with Kevin and like we talked with Dan, they don't do the panels that the voice actors do.
No, and it feels like such a privilege to, and I have to tell you, Kevin's life, I mean, I loved his stories. You and I are huge fans of that era of television.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the fact that he was I didn't know he was Norman Lear's driver. I mean, Norman Lear, who's more revered?
He's one of those Mount Rushmore of TV producers. Him, Charles Burrows, who did Taxi and Cheers and Will and Grace.
Right,
people like
of
that.
course.
That's up there on the Mount Rushmore is Norman Lear for sure.
Right, and just that was such a gift, and he's lovely. He was just lovely. I really enjoyed it. I don't think we talked as much about the episode as we had planned to. So a couple of things I just wanted to mention to you. How great was it to hear Michael Rosenbaum?
Yes, as Deadshot. I almost said Deadpool.
No, as Deadshot. That was so exciting. And he talked about, who he tried to, make him sound like. And he was so great in that. I just loved it. That was really a treat. So I was going to mention that. We were going to mention George and how George was being electrocuted.
3 for 3 episodes on George's electrocution.
Yeah. Or George. And I have to tell you, there was one shot that Dan Reba, or actually it was probably a storyboard artist, but there's this beautiful shot of where Wonder Woman and she's in silhouette.
Yes, at the very beginning.
Oh, yes.
Because they have,
oh my
I was
gosh.
going to ask him about that, but I was thinking that might be a more storyboard question because when they first get back from rescuing the crew of the submarine, Superman is on the phone talking to I assume the Admiral, the Joint Chief of Staff, because he says Admiral. But then it fades to the background and it's you and Phil and Carl, obviously your characters, but it's all silhouette. And I was like, I wonder why that specific choice was made to show you all in silhouette.
It was beautiful. And I say I say Aquaman's no madman because someone refers to him as a madman. And I say he's not. And it's in silhouette. And boy, was that artistic. And I wrote that down because I wanted to give whomever did that a shout out because, Dan would know. I mean, we can ask Dan. So I just wanted to mention a couple of those things. And I loved that there was some bracelet action for me in this episode.
Even
Love
underwater.
that. And the sound effects. I mean, who doesn't like a little bracelet action? That was cool.
And that was one of the things I was going to mention, too, that like we had with The Flash, we mentioned Charlie Schlatter voiced Flash in Superman the Animated Series before Michael got the part for Justice League. Same with Aquaman, because it was Miguel Ferrer who voiced him in Superman the Animated Series in A Fish Story. And then obviously Scott took over the role. So I was wondering, and that might be a Dan Reba question, was it a scheduling conflict? Was it something that came up where the original one wasn't available, much like it was with Charlie for The Flash? I was curious.
Interesting. But it's weird because if it wasn't a schedule issue, it's hard to talk about that. You know what I mean? Like if they're like, no, we just want to replace him. You can't, people aren't going to feel comfortable talking about that stuff. So I think scheduling is a great, it's like people always say, it was a scheduling issue. I think that's the most you're going to get from people.
Right.
Right? I mean, come on.
But
so that was good. That was good. I thought that was good. And God, all the names he mentioned, we have to track down some people.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a lot of information. And again, that's just the information you're going to get from a writer and a director. And that's the kind of cool information that we're hoping all of you out there listening are enjoying from this podcast as we revisit another episode of Justice League.
And if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave a review. Please subscribe. That would really be great for us if you subscribe and, just keep listening and communicating with us and letting us know, what you want and what your questions are, because we just want more of this conversation.
And we'll have more for sure, because we've got another couple of episodes we've already got semi-planned as we continue to record these a little in advance. But this is one of those things, I think from everything we've seen so far, the people are enjoying this content. And if you are, you can also follow us at OG Justice League on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And Susan, where are you if people want to just keep up with you on social media?
So, a lot of Instagram, a lot of Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, and SusanEisenbergVoice.com. And I'm going to be adding a few things to it. I have, I'm going to be putting some things on there today, actually. So, that's where people can find out what I'm doing and about the podcast and things like that.
Very cool. And if people want to see you, hopefully you've got some cons coming up. If not, you can reach out to your local con and tell them to contact either Chris or Neri at Slebworks and says, hey, we want Susan Eisenberg at our convention, and they can they're the people who can make that happen for you.
I think they should reach out to you at this point. I mean, I think you're my best agent at this point.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say, I take that as a comment. That's very kind of you to say. That's all I was going to say.
Okay, well, it's not just kindness, it's truth.
Well, thank you.
With,
and
with a capital T.
Who knows more about truth than Wonder Woman? I got to say
right?
That. For those of you who might be listening too, again, I kind of bring the fandom to this. I'm the little kid sitting here watching this all unfold, and the little 10-year-old me can't believe I'm getting to sit here with Wonder Woman and talk to all these amazing people. So you can keep up with me at Geek to Me Radio on Twitter and Instagram. Facebook.com/Geek to Me Radio. If you go to YouTube and find Geek to Me Radio, as long as my executive producer, Joey V, is in the studio, we do video, so you can watch us broadcast live every Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, a brand new live show brought to you every week. If we're not live with the video, you can still hear the audio at KTRS, that's Kilo Romeo Tango Sierra.com/stream. And you can go to geektomeradio.com for the landing page so you can see all my previous conversations with Andrea Romano and Dan Reba and Susan Eisenberg and Kevin Conroy and George Newbern and everything else. I've been fortunate enough to talk to the entire Justice League cast. But we do recommend that you keep up with us at OG Justice League on Twitter. And Susan, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm just so, I'm pleased. I thought this went really well. You never know how it's going to go, right? You reach out to people and hope for the best. And I was just, that was really fun hearing Kevin talk about his experience on the Justice League.
I agree. And we've got more to come because, as Susan always says,
the conversation continues.